It's time for the third and fourth place match. Please welcome to the stage, TSLPolt. Polt, you have had such an amazing career so far in esports. You have performed so well in so many comebacks, showing the world how to properly play Terran. What would you like to say to all your fans, all the people that have supported you, and to everyone that's going to continue to watch you in 2013?
Nowadays, Terran is having so hard time, and at this tournament, I'm the last Terran also. So all of the Terran fans, cheer for me, please!
Thank you very much, Polt. Now it's time to introduce your opponent. Ladies and gentlemen, from Western Wolves, Sortof!
MC 3-2, then you went for a 3-0 against Hyun, which probably no one expected. Unfortunately dropped in against Violet, but now you're fighting out for the third place. You've been so many people supporting you and like seeing what a great talent you are. Is there anything you want to say to the people out there?
Yeah, just a big thank you. It really helps a lot. We have a lot of people supporting and cheering for you.
Right, give it up for Sortof.
If you will please shake hands. Good fun to your boots.
Oh my god, completely flanking Polt! He's dead, there's no way. Wow, Polt, are you kidding me?
The hero's pulling all the units back from the right top side of the map as well.
The defense are all going to be shot down. He's beaten his opponent, Tasia, 7 maps in a row. Great control by the Muslim, but Violet is going to swing in from behind. Kennedy's bait, and Violet just keeps attacking, man. The Muslim will tap out.
3 different spots. Hyun has to hold in 3 different areas. Sortof about to break through.
Oh, Sortof again.
Sortof dancing. Sortof, a 3-0 sweep.
Oh my God!
Beautifully done. You can see how much momentum Sortof had.
And Violet is going to just crush his way through.
Sortof not prepared. A lot of damage. GG.
Is really spreading Hero out. Hero can't be at every place at once. Hero, the humanity continuing to barrel, and every will fall, and Hero has done it.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited for the third and fourth place match between Polt and Sortof. Guys, this match is for $10,000. Fourth place already has secured $5,000, so a best of 7 for $5,000. Andre, this is incredible, especially considering the run that Sortof has had over the past few weeks.
Oh my goodness, this guy came out of nowhere through the open bracket, which is one of the toughest things to do. He beat out a lot of really fantastic Protosses in the playoffs and the wild cards, including Mana and MC, and now he's over here trying to get third place in the North American Star League Season 4.
Yeah, he's beating players like Symbol, and we've seen him beat Hyun on his way to the semifinals, falling just short to Violet because, you know, Violet's DVZ is absolutely amazing. There's nothing to be ashamed of, and you can look at Sortof's accomplishments. He still is pretty decorated over in the European scene, and he did get second in our Season 4 Open, only losing to Golden. Sortof is underrated and underappreciated in his home country compared to some other superstars like Thorzane, Naniwa, Sasa, but it's time that he starts getting recognition. He's been playing phenomenally.
That's right. And what's interesting about this guy is that he mainly got through the open bracket with his ZVZ. Then he goes into the wildcard playoffs and gets through with the ZVP. Now this is the big time where we'll see his ZVT shine through. And from what I've heard and seen, his ZVT is very, very powerful.
Yeah, that's right, and it's going to be really tough for his opponent, Polt, to overcome. Although Polt is a guy that's always full of surprises. He always says, you know, against Zerg, it's really hard for me to play. I struggle against this race, but he always surprises. In the past 2 seasons of GSL alone, he's beaten Domrigu and Sniper. And then in IPL 5, he beat Sniper again. That's a GSL champion, GSL Code S champion that Polt has already beaten. And he's already shown that he can beat players here like Golden in his TVZ.
That's right, but you know, just that accomplishment alone really doesn't mean anything to Sortof, because look at his match against Hyun. Nobody was expecting a 3-0 victory for Sortof, but he pulled it off. And hopefully, or maybe, we're going to see that over here in our first game.
We're going to kick things off on Daybreak for map number 1. Keep in mind, it's a best of 7. Winner takes $5,000 extra home. It's third place match. Are you guys ready? I think they are, Andre.
Yeah, Frodan, and I am ready. I am so excited for this. Let's go ahead and jump into the game. My goodness, Daybreak, as you said, is the map. And let me tell you, that's a very tough map to start out on. TVZ is probably, you know, really, really nice for the Zerg on this map because it's nice, big, and open.
That's right. Polt will have his hands full, but he did play a masterful game on Daybreak in a series against Golden. But remember we were talking about last time, that base in the bottom right, not able to secure it, and Golden was able to pincer him and just completely suffocate the rest of his economy. What will Polt be able to do this time around? And, you know, I was hearing that Sortof and Polt were practicing at the very beginning of this tournament. You know, a couple days ago, yes, they were just trading games here and there and just trying to see what their TVZ felt like because they were on the opposite side of the bracket. And Sortof was giving Polt a really hard time.
Yeah, I don't think they were really planning on meeting up with each other for the third, fourth place match. But here we are over on Daybreak to start us off. Let's go ahead and jump in right now. Polt versus Sortof for game number 1.
In the bottom left corner of the map, we have the Blue Zerg from Team Western Wolves coming out really strong in round number 1, playing for the third place prize in NASL. It is Western Wolves, Sortof. Placing really well at IPL 5 and an Assembly winner. The only Terran left in NASL Season 4. Give it up for TSLPolt.
As we were talking about, Daybreak is a very big map, so we're going to see economic-driven builds from both these players. Polt has definitely been known to do those 14, 15 command centers very early on, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see that. You can see he hasn't made a barracks, so it is indeed a command center first. The standard Zerg opening is to go hatchery first. Now, against a command center first, you really can't react with any micro, with any tactics in the beginning stages to do anything to your opponent on Daybreak. There are some maps where you can send like 3, 4, 5 drones out and really stop that command center from going up. And a lot of times, Terrans use this command center to unblock themselves in supply. They're going to go up to 19 out of 19 SCVs, and then all of a sudden that command center is halted, so you can't get any units out, and then Zerglings swing through. We're not going to see that. Just based on builds, I feel like Polt has a relatively good build in respect to his opponents.
Yeah, and we'll see how many gases he takes too. You know, you mentioned the supply block, but we'll see, you know, how much margin will he be able to play with even after that, because we've seen him go for 1 gas and Hellions and then go for fast third command center. We've seen him go double gas and go into Hellion Banshee. Those kinds of styles, of course, are the pivot points of TVZ, so we'll check back with him later. Meanwhile, Sortof, he's the guy that usually plays pretty standard, but it's been a long time we've seen a ZVT from Sortof. But in fact, Sortof has played against Polt before in an online cup and lost to him, so Sortof does have some track record, at least from Polt's playstyle.
That's right. And we can already see that standard kind of foreigner style of Zerg versus Terran. Normally the Korean style these days is get a super fast extractor, you get that metabolic boost out on the field, and you're able to just formulate some sort of attack, idea of what your opponent is doing, and maybe even pick off a couple SCVs. But we don't see any extractors up at all. What does that mean? Probably very queen heavy. I would expect 4 to 6 queens out of this game, because if you don't have those queens out, the Hellions come at a time where you have no metabolic boost, and you're going to be suffering a lot of damage, whether it be drones or a delayed third base.
Look at this. Polt ends up sending an SCV scout anyways. A lot of players sometimes don't necessarily scout that quickly off of command center first, and they try to poke with the first Hellions, but he sees everything, sees no gas, and that's going to be really nice for Polt to know.
Yeah, beautiful. And now what he can do is switch over to a starport tech. And I was talking to one of the North American players, Major, and he was saying, as soon as I see no gas at all, I instantly go a medevac, because my opponent just cannot keep up. The Zerglings are just so slow, and if I can get into a position where I'm not having to go through their Sim City, where Sortof should probably put in, evolution chambers, spine crawlers over here, if you can just bypass that, put 4 Hellions on the top over here, he can do an amazing amount of damage to not only the third, but the main base.
And Polt just poking around with Marines, just trying to scout. It's still a very passive part of the game. And by the opening from Polt, he's not going to be able to commit to any kind of true form of aggression. Now, we've seen this opening from Polt before, where he goes double factory, but it doesn't even guarantee that he's going to go for Blue Flame Hellions either, to be able to kill off a lot of the economy from Zerg. Sometimes he just fakes and just goes double Engineering Bay anyways.
Yeah, and it's a really cool thing to see. There's a lot of timings that are incorporated with that double E they build, but it is less common. You're absolutely right, Frodan. We'll see what Polt does. I mean, really, there's a lot of options for him, but he's starting out with these 2 Hellions. Where is he going to go with them? Probably scout out the third. He wants to see the timing of his opponent's third, to see how fast did you get it. How greedy are you being? Look at this, a Roach Horn coming up here. This isn't too common. We don't normally see Roaches to block off Hellions in this early game stage.
Yeah, sometimes at least a month ago, it was really popular to just go double Evo Chamber, Spine Crawler, and just block off the path that way. But we do see that Polt is committing 2 Hellions, and map control does belong to Polt. He has those really quick Hellions, but most importantly, he's going to try to use it to contain the creep tumors, being able to dart in and out. And these 4 Hellions right now, just showing it deliberately and just saying, well, this may look like a normal Hellion, but I'm going to actually go for a lot of Hellions and just run by.
That's right, and let's see if he does anything over here. He's only poking around the third base, not really doing too much. Roaches will pop out pretty soon. Now, the Roaches have a certain power and a problem with it. The problem is going to be economically. You can see the third is slightly later, not by that much, but slightly later. He won't be able to drone that up nearly as fast. On top of that, you don't really get the mobility that you really want sometimes. But what it's really good against is that Banshee Hellion opening into something like Mech, where you take a very fast third base. And if it is Mech directly after this, then there might be a potential, fast Glider Reconstitution Roach push, where he just overwhelms his opponent.
Now that Sortof has seen that there's a lot more Hellions to consider, and it's going to come upon that moment around the 9-minute mark where Blue Flame should be kicking in. He is going to be very suspicious. He's making more Roaches rather than trying to saturate his third, and that's the right call, because he's not going to be able to defend with this amount of units right now. Yeah,
make sure you can just hold your natural. There's no point in droning up if you're not going to actually have it in a couple minutes. So make sure you get the required units, and from there, then you can drone up. But look at this. He's actually pushing out here. This is just to establish his creep. Make sure he can get a little map coverage and a little bit of sight on the map. The creep tumors, of course, spread a lot of creep, but they also give you tons of vision. So if you're able to place as many as possible, it's like a little mini map hack.
He's also seen the Blue Flame, so that's going to be very telling of what Polt wants to do. Still doesn't mean it's mech yet. In fact, Polt is going for a barracks transition back in his main base. As we've been seeing, going for 4 barracks allows him to get a good enough unit flow, and then he can transition to a timing anyways with Marine tanks and a less amount of medevacs.
Yeah, very tricky. Nice transfuse to save that queen. And Sortof is going to get out of there with everything alive. Great pressure being done over here. Now killing some creep tumors. Let's look in the back of Polt's base. Let's see what he's doing. He is switching over to Bio. He doesn't really favor mech at all. And, you know, Bitter has been one of those casters, which I agree, by the way, that says, you know, mech has been figured out a little bit. A lot of players know these really sick timings, and it's hard to defend against it in order to be very successful, or I would say consistently successful. And I feel Polt has that view set. He thinks, you know, mech isn't too stable. I got to be careful when going there.
Yeah, you know, mech's been pretty figured out by now. Kind of like Dean Cook's jokes, right? So most people really know what to expect and how to defend it, how to, you know, to position against the mech. Make sure you don't let the tanks get into a nice spot. Don't let, you know, your units get straggled on, because Hellions are able to really dart in and still go for run bys. And, you know, eventually when you get that center position with Vikings and Thors, it's really hard for Zerg to even break and attack into that, and that allows Terran to transition. So you still can play mech despite the map size and the counterattack paths. But we see here that instead, you know, Polt is going to go for the bio transition. So, you know, we've been seeing his attacks and how they can be effective, but they also can be pretty ineffective. Where do you think Polt really needs to focus on from here on making sure that this Polt, his push can be effective?
Well, Polt needs to focus on getting his siege tanks out and just hitting that 2-2 timing. The real power is going to be the quality of his units rather than the quantity. He got his production a little bit later. On top of that, he got the 2 factories, so it delays, you know, the barracks, it delays a lot of the Marines, but what it does, it starts you off with 2 factories, so you will have siege tanks. He has to now ask himself, where do I want to attack? What's the position where I can get my siege tanks to be optimal? And unfortunately, Sortof has expanded to the perfect location, which is the top left. It's really tough to go over and push and get your siege tanks, let's say, over here before being cut off, let's say, back here, or even prone to some counterattacks. Trading fourth or third for the fourth is a really good idea for Zerg. So I feel like this build, even though it's going to be still powerful, it's not the absolute optimal, but he kind of chose that in the beginning.
Well, remember, he's been on double factory production for a long time, so he has way more tanks than normal, and he's pushing at a kind of off-timed, I guess, timing here, because most of the times you wait for 2-2, but it's only just started. It's sort of going to be prepared. He does get a fungal, but, you know, I mean, there's still so much more where that came from. Polt has so much supply in just raw DPS.
Yeah, I kind of like this. He realizes I don't really have the capacity to push all the way, but I can at least push to take some map control. The way you stop this is you counterattack, you have your units over in that center position, and therefore Polt really can't go for that base trade, but you can see Sortof has been a little bit inactive on the map, and he's really paying for it.
Oh, well, he's not being active any longer. Zerg is coming from the flank as well, as Sortof is going to crash the gates, fungals onto the bio, making sure they can't help the tanks, and Polt's push will be thwarted for now as he does clean up the rest of the units. Sortof is able to defend really nicely.
Very beautiful play by Sortof, guys. His +2 armor was so important in that last attack. The +2 with the roaches allows him to tank so much better against those Marines, and then all of a sudden he just places that single fungal growth, and all of them just evaporate. Now Polt trying to get his 4th base, but by the time 2-2 finishes, does he have a push anymore, Frodan? The answer, of course, is no. So what is he really doing with that 2-2? All of that investment goes kind of wasted. I don't think he thought Sortof was going to go for an attack like that. It just was really, really bold, and he got paid off.
And Polt was at 10 tanks, now only at 2, although he's still making 2 at a time while trying to incorporate some Marauders into the mix. Meanwhile, Sortof has bought enough time for that late-game army that's so intimidating. Infested Broodlord is moments away, or the Greater Spire is about to finish, inevitably going to transition into Broodlords. Polt trying to do whatever he can to buy time. He's going to drop into the main while trying to pressure multiple fronts. And, I mean, Sortof has everything on lockdown, though. What can really Terran do in this situation?
It's beautiful. And look at these. The Infestors are taking a more aggressive stance, making it very hard to get rid of that creep. Oh, unfortunate. Misses a fungal growth and also loses an Infestor. But if you have really superb control, you're going to be able to stop a push like Marines and Marauders from really advancing up and killing all the creep. It's just very hard against a caliber player like Polt. But at this point, that Hive Tech is incoming. The Broodlords are on the way, and it's going to be very dangerous in a couple minutes for Polt. How is he going to be able to deal with this kind of premature Hive Tech?
Yeah, you know, Sortof doesn't necessarily have like a huge infestor count. He's got 7, but Broodlords are enough to kind of push any amount of tanks away. And if you have enough fungals to keep the Marines at bay, then it's just lights out for Terran. So Polt, as soon as he sees the Broodlord count, if he's able to still hit before, then maybe he'll push. But until then, he's still forced to play passive. In fact, he's starting his 5th base, so I think Polt already knows that his timing window is closed.
Yep. He's also starting some starports. Here comes the Broodlords. And unfortunately, you don't want to lose these siege tanks. They're actually so important because they protect you a little bit from the infestors that are approaching very fast.
Oh, Polt trying to flank also with a pack of units in the bottom center of the map and maybe trying to snipe some units, but Sortof already has Zerglings and Roaches in position to deal with it, although Polt's able to hold on, and he's going to pick up here and double drop into the main. Polt's able to bait out the Broodlords and the Infestors to the top half of the map, but he's really going to go for the main.
Yep, it stops the push at the top part, and now he has to deal with this main. Beautifully done by Polt. You can see a couple of Zerglings are going to come over here. Mostly Marauders won't do that much damage against Zerglings, as they do 50% of which. Nicely done. Fungal and a couple infested Terrans.
Oh, that's a big pickup, Andre. 20 supply. And, well, technically, Polt could trade out some supplies. He's starting to get some Vikings into his composition. He knows Broodlords. He needs a better way to answer than just Biotank. He has a quad drop also lined up. Oh, okay, so he's going to try to line up some of the units' attention to the top left and then quad drop, take out tech. But Sora's already prepared. Look in the main. He's making more Spine Crawlers and Spores.
This is a great combination attack, though. I don't think the Spines and Spores will be available for this. But, oh, there are Overlords that can see this and to sort of react. Yes, he actually saw that way in advance, but still, that's 4 medevacs, not just 2 medevacs. This will still do a lot of damage, Frodan.
There's a few tanks loaded up into it as well. Pulse drop does go in the main while the 4th base is being pressured, and there's no signs of resistance over on that part of the map. Pulse still holding strong in the main. There's 2 tanks getting into position, and the Spores and Spines can't hold for much longer. Sortof's attention is drawn away. He is denying the bottom right base and trying to clean up the top left, but Polt is now here in the main, forcing a lot of units out of Sortof. And Polt, meanwhile, is able to secure his 5th base, drawing attention all the way, action all over the map. But it looks like Polt is still able to draw enough time to get his massed air units out.
That's right. Beautifully done by Polt, just giving him as much time. Look at this. Ravens are on the way. Vikings are already out. You know, a lot of people think, oh, Broodlords are out, Infestors are out, I can win the game. But no, you have to still be very defensive until you get static defense up. Your drone count normally going from mid-game into end-game is very high. You need those drones out to be able to keep up with the Terran macro. But once you get these effective units, you actually have to trail off, get static defense, make sure your polar opposites are covered. So all the way on the bottom and all the way on the top. If they have static defense, then you can push out. You're a little bit less susceptible to drops, and you can really make your Broodlords, I guess, capable of attacking rather than always tracking units and trying to defend. So that's one thing that sort of really needs to keep in mind, as he is starting to spine up and spore up everywhere. I love what we're seeing, Frodan.
Polt again trying to do a combination attack, going to the top, but also pressuring this Baneling nest in the middle of the map, as sort of going to land a fungal onto the bio and shut it down immediately. But of course, bio is not as useful as what Polt is trading for. Mass Ravens, getting a lot of Vikings, getting the upgrades like +2 and the Corvid reactor, so that way when he has the Ravens popping, he'll have energy to catch up to the Seeker missile. And we've seen effective usage all throughout the weekend from both Polt and the Muslim. I can't wait to see how he's going to be able to engage in a good spot, especially Sortof, who's controlling his army very well.
Now we have to look where the attacking point is going to be for Sortof. He's taking the 12 o'clock expansion. I like what we're seeing so far. Another very powerful thing that Sortof can do, especially with players that overdo it with Ravens, is very dynamic Ultralist switch. That is one of the most powerful things that you can do, because Raven Hunter Seeker missiles are not that effective against a 500 hit point unit. It's just not going to do
at least
well.
9 Wings of Liberty.
9 Wings of Liberty.
We're about to find out what's going to happen now. He does have to avoid clumping his Ravens, already trying to split. Where are the Infestors? They're all on the top of the map, and the Seeker missiles are already detonating. A couple of Broodlords are extremely vulnerable right now, but the Infested Terrans are being dropped to try to push back the Vikings. Polt trying to fall back to his planetary fortress and has to give up more space. Zerg anxiously trying to break through with so much infested energy left, and Polt might have to give up this base.
Wow, beautifully done, but there is a counterattack drop going in the main. You can see 2 siege tanks. might be sniping out the Greater Spire. He really needs to do that. Takes out, I think, a spawning pool over here, so he can't make Zerglings. That's actually a critical hit. This is the only Greater Spire, the only Spire, and if it goes down, that's a huge momentum switch for Polt.
Polt does hold the center of the map and push back the Infestor Broodlord while still doing damage. The Greater Spire falls, and that's going to allow Polt to target down the Infestation Pit. Infestor Broodlord is no more for at least a couple more minutes, and that'll give Polt time to rebuild an even stronger army. Sort of has a huge opening in his main. Now he does control the top center of the map, but he's going to also lose his hive. There's so much time being bought. Excellent play from TSLPolt.
Absolutely incredible. Dropping back, receiving the push, waiting until the Planetary Fortress is tanking most of the damage, repairing it, and then slowly working his way up to get the composition he needs to defend against those Broodlords. Meanwhile, he has that counterattack. That is his real advantage. It was successful, and you can see how big of a tech advantage he has now, killing both the Hive and the Greater Spire and the spawning pool.
Oh my goodness, he's cleaned up so much, and the big thing is sort of he's so far behind in that because he can't even make a lair without a spawning pool. He can't make a Hive without the lair, can't make the Greater Spire without the Hive. Things combine for such a long delay in the plans, even though sort of still has a big standing army. Polt has bought so much valuable minutes off this game, and he also has a good economy. Last time we were in this position, Polt didn't have the bottom right base, but this time he does, and I can't see any upcoming minutes where sort of can dislodge our Terran player.
I agree, but look at that bank, though, Frodan. That is a pretty large bank for Zerg. I mean, when we look,
spend it on.
Yeah, that is the big problem. But if there's a lot of inactivity right now, and if there's a good trade for Zerg, potentially there can be a really good, momentum switch. You can see 67 to 59 harvesters. I don't know where most of Polt's harvesters are, but here we go. He's moving on up into the 12 o'clock position. Look at how many Vikings and Ravens he has.
Oh, the spread, Andre. He's got a whole screen of Vikings trying to go against this Broodlord Infestor army. Infestor's funneling everything and dropping as many Infested Terran eggs as possible, but the bio is now coming back. The follow-up push from Polt. The Vikings are not going to matter as much as soon as these Broodlords are cleaned up. Polt is breaking through. Sortof supply is dropping, and he can't spend it on any units. He has so much in the bank, but no tech. Polt is breaking through the top center of the map.
Just roaches and Zerglings from here on out. It's so unfortunate. A lair is up, but still no incoming Hive. He really needs some sort of Hive tech to deal with this mass Marine Marauder Siege Tank army. Even though it's a very basic composition, we see this throughout the game, it actually gets a lot stronger as you go on further. So Zergs can't stay on lair tech. They have to switch over to something Hive related in order for them to stop it. But you can see Polt has done such a great job throughout this whole game of denying his opponent his own tech. And he's now going to push on into this middle expansion. Will he be able to get it done, Frodan?
I don't know. The tanks are positioned so well in the... sort of just has no way to directly engage. He's lost his Broodlords. He's now down to just 8 Corruptors, a handful of Infestors, and Roaches and Zerglings. He doesn't even have time to go back up to Hive and be able to get any of that incredible late-game army. He's stuck on lair tech, Andre. And this is an incredibly strong army that's spread out so far from Polt with so much reinforcements. Vikings, Ravens tank in the back. Polt is pressuring the center expansion once again, and I can't see sort of breaking unless he gets the most ridiculous flank ever.
Yeah, he needs a flank, and here it comes right now. Roaches from the behind. This is actually going to be so good. But remember, there is that triple drop going into the back of the main. Infested Terrans are going to be popped here, sort of able to clean things out. Very nicely done. But what does Polt have under his sleeves?
Polt has a diversion. The first attack was a fake. And he can just go down the ramp and... well, Sortof has almost nothing. He's still centering everything onto expanding towards the top center. Polt still trying to waddle his way down the ramp, and there's a lot of things like +2 research going on here. The Roach Warren, that's another form of tech that Sortof can't afford to lose. The Spire once again gets taken out. Excellent play from TSLPolt as Sortof is trying to retreat as fast as he can to his natural base.
Sortof did a great job at stopping the initial push before 2-2. He had an advantage in tech, in army. But it's just the decision-making of Polt that is so hard to counter, Frodan. Again, combination attacks, denying the 12 o'clock, and having this bottom left attack. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, great movement from Polt all around, and now he picks up might lose these medevacs, but again, he's gotten everything he's won. He's now the one controlling the map. Sortof is always reacting to him, and he's still making a great composition. He's not trying to fall for any kind of ultraless transition or going back to the Broodlord, still keeping a healthy amount of Vikings in air while getting out his bio and tanks, trading so cost efficiently, and Sortof, despite him having an incredible bank, still can't spend 5,000 gas and climbing.
Sweet Jesus. That is a lot of gas. But he's waiting until that Greater Spire is finished. Of course, it's still over 100 seconds since the Spire is not done yet. Hive is finished, though, and this is a great location for the Spire this time around. Hydralistan? Is that right?
Yeah, Hydralistan.
All right. TVZ Hydra.
All right, so we get to see maybe some Hydras be able to get thrown into the Zerg mix. I mean, he's got so much resource that he just needs to spend. He doesn't have the availability of making those units. Oh, the Ravens want the secret missiles, but the Fungal does land, and Polt might have to drop something, but he is trying to slowly push his way, and he's still making a lot more tanks to follow this up. How is Sortof going to be able to hold off? Because Polt can make so much more. The secret missile going after the infestor, trying to run, and one does drop, and every infestor that drop is a harder case for Sortof to hold. He's just going to go for it. Infested Terrans and Zerglings going in, Andre.
Oh my, and the eggs might have blocked a lot of these units. You can see the Roaches in the back struggling to move forward. Infested Terrans just get annihilated. Now the Vikings are going to land. He knows he has the game. He's going to push it into this middle expansion, and hopefully if he takes it out, he will have a secure advantage in this game.
Andre, even if he does, reinforcements have arrived, and TSLPolt is breaking through the center expansion. GG! Game number 1.